We're going to open with a song today. This is actually, it's not one of our songs. It's by a Buddhist choir in the Philippines. Is that?
Yes, Philippines.
Um,
There's a reason
There's a reason
behind your birth.
behind your word.
It's not by
It's
chance
not by chance.
you're here on
You're
earth.
here on earth.
Who you
Who
are
you are
is how you have been. The law of karma tirelessly spins. Nature's law
Nature's law
is perfect and
is
just.
perfect and just.
With a cause, the effect is cast. All in life, no one escapes pain. This sad human state need not always remain. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day. Look inside your
Look
heart,
inside your heart.
and you will find a nature that
Nature that
is pure and
is
kind.
pure and kind.
Let your
Let your
heart
heart
be noble and true. Let your mind be calm and stable too. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day. Surely you'll be in pure land one day. Oh, nailed it.
So today, I have three Dharma talks that I've got to roll into one. So to some minds listening, they will be three segmented things. For others, the three will just be one talk, and it can probably just depends on the state of your own mind. Sometimes we think that what's being said is, or what we hear is what's being said, but that's not always the case. It's that how one's own mind takes up a thing determines what they hear. So a lot of times we're finding fault with something out there that we have seen or that we have heard, and it has nothing to do with out there. It has to do with the state of one's own mind. And if we can embrace that as true, it'll go a long way in helping us to be able to hold or handle the things that come, the things that are said, the things that are done in the course of the day, because we recognize that how we have taken it, that's not always reliable. I tell you, it's really a relief for you, because it helps us not take things to, we're just easier in being able to handle or to hold or to respond to things that are said or things that we see or things that we feel. A lot of times we spend a lot of time doing a study on the dependent links of origination. But I think it's Sutta number 55 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and I'm always referring to it because I consider it a hack. There's many places to get to a place. You can take the long route, you can take like the most the direct route, which might be go 10 miles this way and then 5 miles that way. You can't get lost, but that might not be the most expedient route. It might not be the quickest route. I like a hack if you don't lose anything in the process. But if you lose something in the process, hack's not always that good for you. So sometimes we want the shortcut, and we needed to take the long roundabout way because in life there were some things that we were missing that would help us to understand something in a different way if we had had that experience. But because we have not had that experience, we see something in a different way. So some of us need to take the long route. And some of us run that ground over and over and over, and we're ready for a hack. Give me the short version. And that's why there's so many different teachings or ways to explain a thing, and not just the same thing, but this is where it starts to get beyond what the human intellect, the mind consciousness can understand and to break down. It it's like our every word that we use has already been defined for us. So we can't really go beyond that word. That's why I'm always making up words, because I'm trying to express something that doesn't fit exactly with Webster's definition of it or somebody's translation of it. But because I've had, an experience of something, trying to find words. And so the Buddha said that the word, it's the lowest kind of prajna because it starts with our human convention and concepts, and it starts to move towards the uncommon wisdom. But because it starts within our scope of wisdom, it's the lowest kind of prajna. And then we have contemplative illumination. Now we're starting to get into another ground, coming into a field of experience that can shed some light on how we hold something, how we have been told to speak of it, how we and it begins to shed more light in a revelatory way, in a way that helps us to really penetrate to the meaning of it, for me. Not I need the meaning of it for me, not the meaning of it for you. That's all well and good, but I need the meaning of it for me. And because I might be approaching it from the left, it has to be explained to me in a certain way for me to make use of it, to really get it. And you're approaching from the right, it has to be explained in a different way for it to have a certain meaning for you to get it. Having undergone a certain experience, it needs to be explained in a certain way to make use of it. Sometimes you learn a thing before you actually experience it. Sometimes you experience something, you have to unpack it, to figure out what just happened, what back then, because before you heard the marvelous story about what it was and how it occurs in you. And so when you have a room of different minds thinking in all these different ways, or even not thinking in any particular way, and yet something has to go forward, and according to the availability of prajna in the room, prajna can speak and each person can hear what they need to hear. So I got 5 different emails with questions this week from Sangha members, and I also sat in on one of the Friday classes. And those who normally attend those classes who weren't there for the last, I think maybe 3 or 4, there was something vital that I think would shift your whole understanding around something. And I could prepare a ground, when you're gonna have a farm or a garden, the things you have to do, you can't like just plop the seeds in there. You have to cultivate the soil. The things you have to the soil can be too acidic, or it can be too alkaline, or it can have too much clay, or it can have, so the things it needs some nutriment itself in order to pass that on down the line to the seeds when they start to take root in the soil. It needs to there needs to be a certain humidity or certain temperature, certain amount of moisture. There's a whole lot of conditions. You just can't say, I'm gonna be a farmer and throw some seeds out there and harvest it. So in the same way, when we are approaching the Dharma, sister, she might need something so her feet won't be cold, but she has on socks. There you go, if you need it. And so in the same way, our spiritual cultivation needs these same kinds of considerations. And if we don't, I mean, that's part of our effort. That's part of our sincerely applying ourselves, be sincerely interested. I like some nice things, but I don't like to do what it takes to have them, you know? And so I just resigned myself that, I won't have them. I'll do without, because I do not want to do what it takes to really produce like beautiful flowers. They have this thing on your app on your phone now, like if your flowers, leaves start falling off or they start turning brown, you can click it and it'll scan and it'll tell you what you need to do. My answer to everything is whack that one off. And I'm saying, no, don't cut it. That's going to further damage, already, sick plant. Instead, you do this, you got to mix a little cardamom, and you got, oh, I'm not doing all of that. And so I don't try to, I love plants, but I don't try to grow them or to keep them, because I'm not willing to do all the things, but that it takes to it. But we want spiritual advancement, we want realization, but are we willing to do the things that it takes for us to have it? That's the principal thing. We're only looking at once the seed has sprouted and something's popping up out of the ground. But it's not that which is popping up out of the ground that's the most important. That's good. That's the fruit of something, but it is in the preparation of the soil and before even there is a planting, And so even down to the right season, the right time, external conditions like the right temperature. There's so much so something about it before you just decide, I'm going to start, now I'm going to do this. And so there's a lot of factors that go, if we want to be successful at it. Sometimes things have to be taken step by step, line by line, precept by precept. here a little, there a little, until we come to the fullness of the knowledge of some things. Some things don't have to be taken in order, nor can they be, because we already find ourselves in samsara, out in the middle of the ocean without an oar. So we have to start from stroking from right where we are. So we'll stroke a little bit ahead, and we'll grab a little bit of knowledge from behind us, so we gradually come to understand how we got here in the middle of the ocean. So it's a little bit in front of us and a little bit behind us. And so in that way, we gradually learn until we form a picture. It's like taking pieces of a puzzle, and they all helter-skelter all over the place, And when you're putting it together, you don't have numbers on the back, unless you got kitty puzzles, that says this one first, this one next, and this one next. You have to look at it. You have to ponder. You have to make some connections in your own mind. The Buddha's wisdom doesn't help you. You have to have your own wisdom. So until his wisdom becomes your wisdom, you're not going to get that much benefit from it. And the only way his wisdom can become our wisdom is we have to listen to the wisdom, and we have to have an assumption that which was spoken is true. If I don't believe something, or don't want to accept it, maybe because it differs from what I already know, or from way I learned something or how I learned it. And if I see it appear in a different way, I feel threatened in my way, or I'm feeling like my way or our way is the only way. And then it wouldn't need 84,000 teachings, just get one. And everybody get with that program. But it's so that we can truly penetrate to the meaning of things, and that we can arouse and come our insight, until we make contact with our original nature. So everything we see dovetails right back to is a mirror, and that dovetails back to us seeing our original nature, our Buddha nature. And so all of the myriad words of examples, of methods, all of those are designed for that, and if we can hold that, then there's a lot that we can learn, and not just what validates what we already know, but we will have that kind of openness, so that we can catch a glimpse of something that we don't already know. What gives me an excitement about waking up every morning is because I'm looking to hear, I'm looking to see, I'm looking to realize, I'm looking to come into contact with, even through feeling. It's a thing. So I'm looking to come into contact with something that I don't already know. Who wants to wake up every day to the same things that we already know? It's like a Groundhog Day. It's like Groundhog Day. But when you can have that kind of freshness, to be open, that kind of humility, that kind of non-arrogance, the kind of interest to hear something new that one can ponder on, for the gaining of insight, or even hindsight, because hindsight can lead to foresight, can lead to insight. And so that's what brings a joy into the day. There's some knowns, that I'm going to encounter. There's some knowns of what I'm planning to do today, but that's not the bright spot of my day. That's my rigmarole. That's my ordinary, that's my ordinary life. But I'm always looking for the uncommon. I'm looking for the extraordinary. I'm looking for the exquisite that comes just in a common phrase or a common conversation. Wrapped up in that ordinary conversation, there is something exquisite that brings me closer to an understanding of something in the Dharma. Every single thing is related to the Dharma in some kind of way for me. Otherwise, it kind of goes, I was gonna say it just goes across the screen. And I could say that at one time it went across the screen. So I would be interested in this and that I didn't care about. But now everything that goes across the screen has some kind affects me dharmically in some kind of way. I'm seeing the truth of something. I'm hearing the truth of the Tathagata's words. I'm experiencing what it means on a deeper level than how I had experienced it before. It challenges just an assumption that I held just yesterday, or just this morning, or just 15 minutes ago. And I might stay with that, or I might go back to the original one. But when I go back to the original thought or the original way I held something, I don't hold it exactly the same way, because now some other ingredient has been brought into the picture. There's a different dynamic to the same thing that I pondered yesterday. And so that's the beauty of the Dharma and what the Dharma does. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about bardos, and we generally think of bardo. Well, that's one of the things I want to talk about. We generally think of the bardo as the intermediate period between rebirths, and that's called the bardo stage, and cultivation practices for this period of time that in between space is called bardo stage yogas or stage work, or and so some of us take trainings in dream yoga and things like that, and of course I have. And there was a time I was actively like following the book, following the instruction of the teacher, following, but I'm applying myself, learning or investigating a new thing, and I'm not so much like thinking about it. I am listening, and I am trying to follow the instruction, but there comes a place and time where following the instruction, you realize that it's really not going to get you there. You're going to have to let go of the instruction, but it's not before you hear it. First, you have to hear it. You have to apply yourself to understand the purpose of it, the benefit of it, and when you got it, and something may or may not occur, that's a direct indication of the words and the techniques that we use, so that they take on a different character, a different quality, and act as a power in your life. So training on what to do in these kinds of states must be undertaken in this incarnation to know what to do in that state. So in other words, I can't wait until I'm in a bardo to try to figure out what bardos are and how to no, I have to practice on this side, so that when I get there, it's like you can't wait until you're dropped in the middle of the ocean to learn how to swim. You need to take lessons when there's a pool and a side that you can hold on to while you stroke. Then when you get dropped into the middle of the ocean, you know what to do. You know something about the properties of the element that you're in. You know that to struggle, you wear yourself out. Where if you relax, just the buoyancy will bring you to the top. I mean, you come to know these things, and you have confidence at that moment if when you're dropped in. And when you get dropped in, you have to do other things, like your vision can't be looking at how large the ocean is, how vast the ocean is. You have to bring that puppy in close. You have to draw your vision in, so that one is not overcome and overwhelmed by the vastness of the ocean. Otherwise it changes your whole frame of reference of the that experience. It's like learning to tell something when you're in the midst of a trial, learning how to take it one step at a time instead of looking at the magnitude of. Someone can get overwhelmed when they look at the magnitude of the issue, but if you can look at just what's closest to you, and I hold that because there's nothing I can do about it at this time. Or is this the time to do? I mean, all of these kinds of questions can rise up and you can tend to. And so speaking of this as the Bardo, what I want to say today is that's not the only bar right here, right now, through proper cultivation. And when one is in one of those spaces, you can try to use words to kind of express what's happening, but unless one has this experience, you know, they don't have a reference. And the reason why they talk about don't tell your experiences, don't talk about your experiences, because all a person's gonna walk away with is what's in their own mind about what you said. They can't get in your mind and know what that is, So if you're sharing it, make sure there's a point to sharing it that is really useful for someone, beneficial for someone, instead of just thinking uh that they will get it because you're telling the story. Make sure it's useful, to them. Otherwise, it just becomes like go blah blah, and even the realization you have can easily be lost just because one's own heart and mind is in an egocentric place. That's Sue. Suka, she can just come on in. So I want to talk about the bardos that occur right here, right now, through proper cultivation. But actually, any bardo, any intervening period in your cultivation is a bardo stage, or it's a place or a period of resting, between any two periods of either dissimilar activity or between resting period between similar activities. So this can be the space between two thoughts, right? The space between two breaths. It can be the space between waking and sleeping. It can be the space between dreaming and non-dreaming. We have all of these spaces where Bardo can occur. So I think of Bardo, this is just my own way of processing it. You come up with yours. But I think of Bardo as intercession. Inter meaning between, and session is the giving up of. So inter with the giving up of rights. So we always think everything rolls back to what we think we have to. We have a right to possess, what we have a right to have, what we have a right to do, what we have, and this whole notion, rights, is what keeps us so firmly attached to the sense of a self. So a lot of the practice, particularly when you come into monastic life, is the surrendering of rights, the giving up of a notion that I even have a right to do this or have that or say the other. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not a time that something needs to be done, something needs to be said. It doesn't mean that there's never that time. But because the time of picking up something, there's a time of laying down something, so that there can be an understanding of what is to be picked up, how it is to be picked up, when it is to be picked up, and so that it is advantageous for oneself and for those around you. And it takes time to grow into that. And I would say to grow into it until you're Buddha, you're continuing in the growing into. Not when you reach Buddhahood that you don't have to grow into it anymore, that you come to the completeness and there's a full understanding of the nature of the universe and the laws that govern the universe. So that's some of the problem with grasping so tightly to our intellect and what we already know or what we think we know or the level upon which we know and where that meets up within the whole field of knowing, the universal field of knowing. And so in this bardo, this stage of this in-between stage, in that place of the giving up of, and you can fill in the blanks, what I know, what I have experienced, what I want, what I need, but you can just fill in the blank there. In that space, we can drop, we relinquish, we give up the sixth mind or the sixth consciousness, that ordinary consciousness, that constantly chattering, analyzing mentation, that one that's always reminding us, reinforcing for us what we know, and that which takes this illusory coming together of things as being firm and concrete and real. And so that we relinquish that mind. It's a time that our ordinary consciousness becomes greatly diminished. And that part of that is by the will, the free surrender of what one thinks one knows, the willingness to listen to the one that one thinks is wise. And it takes both of those, and the part about this kind of listening is we're not, analyzing has its good points, its strong points. But I won't say that analyzing is the highest way to know something. It could be a high way to know something, but it's not the highest way to know certain things. Analyzing is good for knowing what to do in this particular world, how to move and how to function and have our being in it. But there are other dynamic fields that we can experience here and now that analysis is not that good for. It doesn't do as much for. So I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying, use the right things in the right places. And one way you can know how that's working for you is things are working for you. And when I say working for you, I don't mean that the thing is naturally working out like what we call right, meaning we're getting what we want, but that we can be with whatever we can be with, even down to when there is some trepidation or concern about the future. Like, I hope I live beyond. So then there is, there is some thought there, but not with that kind of contamination that produces worry. There is just the thought, and it takes time to tease that out and find out where that is in you. And that's the time words are not going to help you that much. You have to have your understanding that's born out of the direct experience of something that is loftier than where the samsaric, ordinary, untaught human mind rests. So there's when we allow our ordinary mental activity to power down, or it becomes greatly diminished at this time, we enter kind of a realm of peace that allows for the arising of a fundamental and universal awareness, just really vast and expanded awareness of primordial mind. Whose mind is it? It's our own mind. It's hard to say our own mind, because if we think of our own, then we think of there's an experiencer who has to experience. So it's some of the insufficiency of words. But if you could imagine what it's like, that when you access this space, it changes how you know yourself, and how you see externally becomes modified, becomes modified. So that's more than just what you see, it's how you see. And so in order to progress towards like the true emptiness, not a one-sided kind of emptiness or nothingness kind of emptiness, we can use temporary experiences of minor stages of emptiness to get an idea. It's something like this. Sometimes people have an experience of mind completely blown because they have absolutely no reference for what just happened to them, you know? But so it's better not to have that bombastic kind of experience, but to have an experience that you can kind of see how there's been a progression, a shift in how you understand things and how you hold them, how you relate to them, how you move through them, how you see the emptiness that's on the other side of them, you know? And it's so wonderful when you have, in the company of good friends in the Dharma that are also moving in this way. And that's why I said it's important to associate with good friends in the Dharma. Now, some of us only like to associate with those who know less than us so we can have our bravado about how much we know. You know, some of us want to run with the big dogs when we need to stay on the porch. You know, we that's not ready for certain things, but we want to be ready, or we want to be seen with that group, or we need them to help establish our value, or our worth, or because we just really, really, really want to know, and we're like impatient children, and we want to know why. That's what children ask. They ask a question, and I say why, and you try to think of something that's on the first grade level that maybe they can understand, and then they next question, but why? And then you got to come up with something else, and then wonder why, and now you add adult answer, but you know that the child will not understand that, and you'll say, ask me when you're 16, or something like that, and so if we keep in mind that when we take up these various methods, we cannot truly experience the enlightenment that we seek, that we are looking for, because there must be an experience to experience. And so the master starts with words pointing us to an ultimate, but on this side, and on the other side of that, there are various stages, of freedom up to ultimate in enlightenment. So I wanted to talk about some way that we need to think so that we can have a kind of, take the kind of action needed to observe consciousness, to observe knowing without, you could say without analysis, like how to just be natural. How to just be natural when we're trying so hard, and first of all, when we're analyzing, we're only putting up what we see or what we're looking at, whatever that object is, through the lens of what we already know, or what we already think, or what we already embrace as true, or what somebody has told us true, or what we, and we're already putting it up against the known. And I'm saying, is that enough? I mean, we can use some of that, but you can see the limitation, though, of analysis using the ordinary mind. There's a saying that says, vanity is corruption from the start. That's such a good mindset to hold. That vanity is corruption from the beginning. And it helps us then not to use what we know as a platform for reaching higher, for the expanding of our consciousness, and not a platform to be for our ego to reside upon. And it allows us to have not just an inquiring mind, but a listening heart. Even the Buddha himself said, like when they would ask about this and ask about that, he just said, come see for yourself. So unless we're taking it and using it in that kind of way, we're gonna miss the benefit of it. So some of you missed the last couple of classes, and I'm really sorry, because there was something I felt that was especially important to understanding how to put the next foot forward. And without this, you'll kind of move around and be a little tipsy or uncertain, because it was a little bit of information, just a little bit, just teeny bit of information. But sometimes, just having a drop of something, of some ingredient in your stew makes all the difference in it being a wonderful, fantastic, delicious meal and being ho-hum. It's just, it can be just a little thing. So we don't have to think it's only like the big things, that have value, but it's the little things. Not only do they have value, it's also the little foxes that spoil the vine. And so we have to be aware of and have an appreciation for small things, small beginnings, small understandings, and if we do, then we can build upon that, and it grows larger and larger. So I wanted to read a little bit from expounding the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra that we missed, because there's one particular line here that arises in my heart concerning being in that intercessory place, that place in between where one is giving up rights, where we relinquish, we surrender, where we yield, and we give up the constant chattering and mentation of the sixth consciousness. And when you find yourself in this place, you know it, because the five aggregates, they just can't rise to thwart you. They can't act. In those spaces, they cannot act. Now, as we go through our day, we have to use our mind for things. We have to use we have to use the five aggregates. They are in play. But I'm just saying there is a space where they cannot even rise. So we don't have to try to put them down. They can't act. And so that is the space that we're trying to get in. And so this little shift in your perception, if you've missed the Tuesday and Friday classes, any one of them for the next 2 weeks, and this is from page 273, and I think we're on 278 or 9, is it?
All right. Yeah.
So I just wanted to take a few lines for that, so y'all can catch up, so I won't be left without knowing. And we can all sort of like be on the same bus, even though we get a different perspective from each seat, looking out each individual window, right? So although form is empty, it exists in the same way that the 10 illusory things produced from conditions exist. Listen attentively, disciples. Otherwise, you will suddenly be unable to understand what you hear. That is, although we understand that form is empty, that it is empty in essence, that it is empty at any moment, it nonetheless still exists in the same way 10 illusory things produced from conditions exist. Form exists like an illusion, a bubble, a mirage city, an echo, and so on. Form still exists. This table before me exists in the same way that the 10 illusory things produced from conditions exist. As I just mentioned, we cannot say that there is total emptiness with nothing whatsoever there. You cannot deny the existence of the table. However, the 10 illusory things produced from conditions are still all ungraspable and illusory. I talked about the 10 illusory things produced from conditions yesterday. They are all like an illusion, but they truly manifest. To put it in a straightforward way, they are all like illusions and will all go through arising, existing, decaying, and vanishing. Their essence or inherent nature, however, is emptiness. Although their inherent nature is emptiness, however, they truly manifest like an illusion, but manifesting in reality. They are truly right there in front of you, such is the meaning. This illustrates that the absolute truth lies in the fundamental nature of form and emptiness being one, not two. It illustrates that the absolute truth of the essence of form and emptiness is that they are one and the same rather than two separate things. In our reality, we have this duality, it's this or it's this, So it is very difficult for us to imagine or be in a space where we can see something as existing and not existing, and we can't see, it has to be like this or it's like that. It's like two things can't occupy the same space in this ordinary reality. But there are other realities where that is just simply not the case. And so some of the experiences that we have start to introduce us to this. And we realize something, but because we don't have the languaging for it in this world, in this realm, with this kind of mind, it becomes very difficult to talk about, like you just had to have experienced it to know. So it illustrates that the absolute truth of the essence of form and emptiness is that they are one and the same rather than two separate things. It illustrates the absolute truth that form is emptiness as a matter of fundamental nature. From this comes the absolute truth of the fundamental nature of form and emptiness. Thus, we cannot omit emptiness when we're talking about phenomena with form. It is also the illumination of wisdom based on the mutual inclusivity of form and emptiness that all Buddhists have realized. So in the beginning, we only know about cutting off the notion of self through realizing, quote, what we call emptiness. And so we regard the aggregates like and self like as two extreme opposites. And so this results in a realization sometimes of emptiness of self, but not the emptiness of the aggregates and not the emptiness of all phenomena. So I'm thinking, empty of self, empty of self. What about the emptiness of the camera? It's not, like everything has its essential and fundamental nature in emptiness. And this is hard to see if you try to use an analyzing mind. I mean, it just takes a lot of effort to get it. I mean, children can get a concept easier than adults because they're not so fixed around, what they know and how it needs to be expressed to, to be considered right, or to be okay, or to be logical, or whatever. And that's why they have such an extraordinary capacity. I mean, like a sponge, they can soak up. In a period of 6 months, they learn, I don't know, 10,000 words, and they learn, you talk about how fast a child learns, and there's a whole science around it. Oh, that I could be 6 years old, I could really make some progress on this path, but it's my awareness, that is my obstacle. So once we realize the emptiness of the 5 aggregates, it begins to cut off the doubts that we have. Otherwise, we still have doubts about what we hear, what somebody said, what we think about it, and our doubts hinder and cloud our mind. But when the less doubts we have, the more the absolute truth can naturally appear. And there is a wisdom or an illumination, something is illuminated for you. It really wasn't that you turned on the light, but you became aware of the light that's already present. It's almost as if there is an action on you. The light penetrates to you, and you can see the and that light that we see is like, if you can imagine, like it was a light reflecting on a light, and it's reflecting your own light. You are that light, and so when we try to ascribe things to ourselves and say, I am light, we just produced an experiencer, and now we've cut ourselves off from, the realization that comes with the true illumination, because we brought ourselves back into personhood. And so learning how to walk in that space where we're constantly able to be on both sides of that, which is the emptiness of self and the emptiness of all phenomena, allows us to be with things, have things, do things, respond to things. When I was in church, every time somebody asked me something, I'll talk to Jesus about it. Let me ask the Holy Ghost, or let me so where is, it used to like tick me off because I'm asking somebody to do something, and I'm like, you don't have to ask him, can you just go and do that, like that's let me see how I feel about it, I mean, like that's what that meant. And well, I'll pray about it. This don't take prayer. This just takes doing, are you willing? And so, so we get into these super spiritual kinds of spaces that are really not real. That's just our own falseness and phoniness. And when I say false and phony, you don't have to feel bad about it, because that's part of our ignorance. And I'm like, how will you know the truth unless, unless somebody tells you? So the Buddha comes to tell us, so all we got to look at it and do is look at it and see it and say, and not my fault. Since beginningless time, I've had these since beginningless time have these obstacles come forward, like it. So I don't have to feel bad about it. I just need to recognize, and that allows us to kind of work on ourselves without having a sense of condemnation, or a sense of unworthiness, or a sense of, any of that stuff, because all that stuff is personal stuff, and it's not personal like that. It's really not personal like that. Even down to everything we do, every spiritual practice that we do. Like last night we did Vajrasattva, and it was so wonderful. It was wonderful, at least for me, because Vajrasattva for me is a manifestation of my own awakened mind, and so it was just a mind to mind kind of transfer. I mean, the only Vajrasattva I'm going to see is the one I make in my mind, you see. So we have to understand things that we do and why we do them, and how they are just skillful means or practices to help our dullard minds be able to kind of get a concept until enough till we can have a realization of the truth. And the truth is not just something out in, but the truth depends on, it depends on people, places, and things. What's the truth in one situation is not in another situation. It's it's very peculiar to the actual interactions that we have. And that's why one person can ask, can they do something? The answer is yes, sure. Another person asks, can they do the same thing? The answer is no, because it's yes for them, it would be beneficial, it would be useful. It's no for them, because although it might appear to be beneficial, it's really going to stumble them. And so you have to know yes for this situation, no for this situation. Or it can mean not no forever, but not no today. Sometimes when we get a no and we like shut down, we pissed off, we're angry, and we're upset. We're not talking to nobody for 3 weeks, and and it was no for Monday, but it would have been yes for Tuesday, but you weren't in the place for yes because you off being mad for the next 3 weeks. And so, and then we think it was their fault that they caused us to miss something. You see, but we have to take full responsibility for our lives, what we incur, where we win and where we lose. But we can't. It's hard for us to take responsibility for where we lose, because we think that's somebody else's fault, or there's something wrong with the teaching, or there's something wrong with the teacher. Might be a lot wrong with the teacher, but it depends on. I mean, I think it was the Apostle Paul said he had to be careful that after he preached to others, he himself didn't become a castaway. He said, I know all the right things to say, and I'm gonna tell you the right things to say and do, but I gotta be careful. Like, I gotta make sure that I'm saying and doing them. But because it would be a shame after I told you all that and you benefited from all of that, and I myself be a castaway, and so it takes on, this walk takes on a kind of dynamic kind of energy. It truly is a field that you abide in. So getting back to the six sets of six, I like it because it's to me a hack, a shortcut for the 12 links of dependent origination. He just starts up about where the bottleneck is, and he like lumps the beginning together. It kind of says the internal base meets the external base, consciousness arises, and the three of these make contact, and with contact comes feeling. I like it, I don't like it, I'm ambivalent about it, or I'm in a neutral space, or I'm too lazy to even think, like whatever you like, or and so, but with feeling then comes craving. And he talks about cutting the link. He didn't say that we cut the link before feeling, because feeling co-arises when the internal base meets the external base and the consciousness arises, and those make contact, and with that comes feeling. Feeling comes with it. So if we get into a space that we push away feeling, then we know we're cutting the links in the wrong place. You can cut it there, but you're going to be a dried up, shriveled old tree branch or something like that. Just a feelingless something, and so he didn't say there, he said, cut the link between feeling and craving. And so if you, right there is where the work is. Forget all the other, forget all the rest of them. Just go right there. That's where the hack is. So I have to ask myself sometimes, like, and how and the good news is that we can align our feeling with wholesome behaviors. That's where our practice comes in, and taking a precept and taking vows, um, and walking them out in a way that is as fruitful for us individually. And then when we can do it individually, we can join together and we can do it collectively. But if you can't do it individually, not committed to that, it gets hard to come into a group. You have pandemonium all the time because everybody's like being their own individual self, trying to do their thing or trying to make you do their thing, and so it becomes impossible. And so that's where we work, like cutting that link. But it doesn't mean we don't have feelings. Do we become callous? We could become cold and we become rigid, and basically we step out of a space to be touched by the feelings of the infirmities of others. So we can cultivate ourselves in such a way that our feelings can line up with virtuous thoughts and actions, and like, let's just say if I like bright colors and you like, see if I say drab, that sounds negative. You like, give me a word. Neutral, right? You like neutral. I like bright colors.
Pastels.
Neutral
if you
earth tones.
like neutral colors, then the difference is that when I see neutral, I'm gonna have a certain feeling towards it. And so when we can get to that place that one is constantly thinking about another, simply because I say to myself, I say to myself, I was such a sad sack. The first name they gave me was Sukananda, because I was such a sad sack that there needed to be a vibration set up that could give me, like, where I could smile more, like there's some in this room that could, I maybe need to change their name because they need to smile more. I mean, just smile more, not because of anything, just to turn up the muscles in a certain way that when somebody sees you, their heart is lifted or they're gladdened. Sometimes like we can like be talking about a thing and like really getting across a good point, but we're getting across the point like this, and people can't get the point. You know what I mean? And it's not because what we're saying is not right, not true. It's not because it's not good. It's all of those things, but we've already set up a vibration, that hinders or keeps the essence of it from passing, from transmitting. We're constantly transmitting. And so if we keep this in mind, we can say things to ourselves. There was one, I was like to be so unhappy. I wasn't the only child, but I was the baby 6 years behind the last one. So they came like every 9 months, and then 6 years, nothing. And then I came along, and they kept saying, well, she's the mistake, because they certainly didn't plan to have it anymore. And so I thought of myself as the mistake, or they thought of me as the mistake, and they just kind of banded together, my other 6 sisters and brothers, and there was me also. But when I got in church, there was a particular scripture that said, if I say to myself, I shall put on a happy face, then shall my countenance be changed. Then shall my countenance be changed. My whole field of energy. But I have to say it to myself. So when I find myself challenged by things, like, I say things to myself, and that's what helps me flip the script. That's what helps me come out of, uh, come out of that space and deliberately choose another space. Now, it might take me like climbing a rope, to get into that space, but I'm not stagnant. I'm moving towards something because I have established an aspiration at that point to move from where I am. And I'm not waiting for a bus to come by and pick me up and take me there. Not waiting for an airplane to swoop down. I'm not waiting for a divine word from the creator. I'm not, none of that, but if I say to myself, I shall put on a happy face, then can my countenance be changed? And not only can it, then shall it, then will it be changed. And that's how one starts to develop confidence in oneself. And it's not an arrogant kind of confidence. It is one born of experience. Having done that, I know that for myself to be true. And so our confidence grows in the Dharma, and then we have these spurts of growth or this flash of insight, and then one has to sit with it. And you should sit with it, because if you don't sit with it, our little weak minds, we forget it. Actually, from time to time, I thought about telling the story, not the story of Pannavati, but the story, an odyssey of a Black Buddhist nun. And I thought about telling it, because I thought the story needed to be told. It could be useful. We're not out of the woods yet by any means, any stretch of the imagination. And so I thought about it, but as time went on, it was like, no need to tell. Everybody got a story. They're just like everybody got one. And so I said, no, I won't tell the story. And then, a little time will go by, and I think I should tell the story because it will encourage someone. Number one, we start thinking we're alone, and we're not alone. We start thinking, more is on us than what we can handle. Then we start to find out, that there is nothing that comes our way that we can't handle. I mean, there really isn't. It just depends on, what we do and what we rely upon, you know. And so, and if whatever you're relying upon, or whoever you're relying upon, if they're not working for you and that's not working for you, find something else. That's all. And so I was just thinking about all of this, and I'm saying, no, I won't write the book. Yes, I will write the book. No, I won't write the book. And today I'm at no. No, I won't write it. But we should really know how to look. Maybe one day, if I really get into a truly selfless space, but there's still Pannavati in that story, you see. So that's why it's not the time to write the story, because I can still find her. I can still find her in that story. So the time to write the story is when honestly within yourself, there is no attachment to that story. That's when it's going to really have that kind of power, that it becomes transparent and it becomes everybody's story, not just my story. It becomes everybody's story. Everybody can see themselves in it, and overcoming the vicissitudes of life, and what the steps are in that, and how you validate that, for yourself. But then you get to a place that there's no more thinking of any of that, and at that point you can be, sometimes I'm gonna tell you, sometimes you're in this side of reality that we call life, and sometimes you're in another side of this reality that is invisible to our senses, but actually does exist, and sometimes being in that space or in that field overrides your momentary experiences on this side of things. And that's about all I can say about that. But it will make you think of others first as yourself. There's a practice that we take up, right? Well, we start with all beings on my mother, you know, and I needed to start with that. Maybe some folk that don't need to start with that, but I had like a not a love relationship with my mom. And so if you started talking about anything that referenced the mother, I didn't want to dialogue with you about it because I didn't have a good experience with that, you know? But later on, as I learned Buddhist principles, I began to have appreciation, you know, for what was done. Like how she worked 3 jobs. I'm saying she was never home with me, never sat me on her lap, never held me and said, I love you. Even when she braided my hair, she turned me backwards so that I wouldn't be facing her, but all the other kids she braided this way so that their face was turned, her breast, but me, I was turned outward. And I know like most people, they braid hair this way. Well, we got different kinds of hair. We got nappy hair, right? So it's not like that long, straight hair. And so it requires different means in how to handle it, even how to plait it, you know, and so, but I noticed those kinds of things. But now I'm working on this Buddhist practice I've taken up, seeing all living beings as my mother. You mean even the cat, even the, you know, and these things were hard for me in the beginning, but I could say them. I could say them, you know, seeing all, even the, you know, even my, who set themselves up as my enemy, can I say that? The one that I see that I have to be careful about because they're dangerous in intention towards me. I gotta see them as my mother. Well, I could see them as my mother from my original way of thinking, but now, you know, seeing it this way, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard. That's all I can say. I've been doing a search on Donald Trump's father, you know, because I'm trying to have a deeper uh, have deeper compassion, and compassion doesn't mean like you just do nothing there. Don't get them mixed up. But you know that whatever is done with the right intention, and it's done with the right flavor that opens up an avenue, you know, for redemption for a person. You know, I don't want to be throwing hailstones. You know, Adam, he has enough to the wall him and forever be taking away the boulders, you know, to create maybe a condition, some kind of change, or that maybe he's just tired and he'll, you know,
Yeah, I was thinking.
try again next time, or, you know, I'm really trying to I'm really trying to like be circumspect in the thoughts, you know, I mean, I might not say them, but you know, we think them. And that's why it's important to, I think, not for everybody, but why it's important for me to develop a, a visualization practice. Because when I'm thinking something in my mind, I'm not thinking in words and letters. I'm not writing out words, but I'm seeing pictures in my mind. And those come up without me trying to bring them up. They just come up on their own. It's like, get away, but they bang, they're right there, you know? And they can come up like that. They can sneak up so fast, they can get so big, you know? So in working with that, because I do visualize about things I shouldn't visualize about, you know, I mean, those pictures just come up. Now I'm thinking of how can I take certain qualities, certain attributes, you know, and how can I visualize them, you know, washing me clean, flowing into me, the pristine brightness of a being, that being my fundamental quality, you know, that's and these kinds of things, so that I can quickly subdue I can quickly subdue my own mind. And I can quickly have a right understanding about something that's based on the principles of the Dharma. So that's, if somebody had explained this to me a long time ago, I've been using them a long time ago, but by using them, I see the benefit for me. And so half of us in the Sangha do, half of us don't. Some are trying to do it. I'm like, you need to stop doing that practice because that is not for you. Because you don't even, you don't understand it, you don't believe in it, you're like half-heartedly doing it. It's like, and the only thing that's going to come from that is whatever you bring to it, because whatever you envision is a figment of your own mind. And if we can kind of like blur the lines, kind of erase the lines where we have so concretized things, we will see how easy we can shift. We can have a Chin Fung. Chin Fung is wisdom like the wind. We can have that kind of wisdom that can blow and that can lift us, it can lead us to a place that is higher than where we commonly reside. And so I think I want to stop right there. But the 5 people that sent me texts over the last 3 days, I have certainly addressed what I wanted to address, and I wanted to kind of bring some of you up to help kind of destroy this view that form and emptiness are of 2 distinct sides, but that the fundamental nature of all phenomena, is emptiness. And if you could just, and sometimes it just takes hearing that, saying that, until it settles into you in a way that you really start to see that. And then we realize that there's no need to wait until a form vanishes for it to be empty. But we can see the illusory nature of all things, then we'll be able to handle whatever arises in our life, moment by moment. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you or danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. Yeah.
Thank you.